How I became a generational healer. The short story is I leaned in and was open to what was being asked of me. The longer story is I never wanted to become a generational healer. I went kicking and screaming, and it's been the most beautiful journey, and I am so grateful for this because it feels like home. So I'll start with when I was a kid. I had a dream. It was not to become a generational healer. I actually wanted to become an actress, which I did and still am because I still do voiceover work. Um, I made an actual dream at night, and I dreamt that I saw two paramedics um, like trying to resuscitate someone. And not the next day, but a little while later, I saw the exact same scene. It was on my neighbor. It was on one of my neighbors, a kid. I was maybe 10 years old. I don't really remember. And it was that moment that I got really scared and I closed off any sort of gifts because I thought maybe I made that happen. I thought, oh my gosh, I dreamed it. I made it happen. And we're all quite intuitive in our own ways, and I kept that sort of closed off as much as I could, um, moving forward with life. Fast forward, certain things happened, and I was in my 20s, my late 20s, and I was full of a lot of anger. And somebody told me, oh, you should try Reiki. So I was like, all right, let me look up what this means first. And it turned out to learn how to do Reiki on yourself, like the level one, was the same price as getting one session. So I was like, well, I might as well learn because that seems cost effective. And so I took it, and I had a profound experience with energy healing for the first time. It was amazing and beautiful, and I started to use it. And through this, after that particular time in Australia, I traveled a lot around Southeast Asia and other countries where being part, like tapping into your spirituality, wasn't necessarily related as much to religion and that sort of judgment that I had on it. And I discovered so many things. I learned from healers. I learned more Reiki from other spiritual healers. Met reincarnations. There was just a whole heap of spiritual experiences that I had, and it was during that time where I knew it was. I was meant to help people. I was meant to support them in some way. I was like, I'm going to be a life coach, or I learned, I had done my first sort of yoga trainings, and so I kind of went into that. I just knew in my heart I could support people in a way that made them feel wonderful about themselves, that made them, release everything that no longer, like, that they didn't need to hold on to. I got sick. Um, a little ways still while traveling after that, and I ended up coming back to Canada after years of being away, and I was very sick. Nobody really knew what. I was just an outpatient in the hospital, and I eventually ended up having like an abscess on my kidneys, and it just went away with a lot of hardcore medication. So from then, I decided to deepen my studies in life coaching and yoga, and this is where, maybe you've met me as a yoga therapist, and I really became interested in applying yoga to health as a whole. And in this, yoga has that movement, but it also has it also helps connect you with your spirit and the chakras and the energy. And so I started to open, and I was like, okay, here I am. This is it. Um, and then I started to feel kind of yuck. Well, yeah, I started to feel kind of yuck, and I knew there was something more that needed to happen. So fast forward to meeting my teacher and mentor, Vanessa Faria. She's amazing if you ever want to check her out. I had an experience where it was like a vision boarding party, and she did a demonstration of generational healing, and I was one of the people that she demonstrated on. So after that healing, like it felt amazing, but I had this like a channeling. It was like the ancestor was still with me and she had something to say, and I said it to the group, and I wish it was recorded because it felt very profound. And I realize that's how I feel every single time I do a healing now. It's really quite beautiful. Uh, so I did that and I was like, oh wow, I need to work with this woman. So she has generational healing, but she also does something called soul therapy. And I worked with her, and in my work with her, she opened me up to my spiritual gifts. Remember that time where I talked about like me closing them down? Um, I had, there had been a few points along the way where my father passed away when I was 19, and I had somebody like I started to have communication with him. Like there was just a few things, but this was the moment. These 6 sessions I had with her just opened me up so incredibly deeply to my gifts. And she was about to host the next like a teaching, like to teach people to generationally heal, and she thought it would be a good fit for me. And to do this healing, you need to start with what's called the 13 Mystical Wisdom Apprenticeship Training. And honestly, I wasn't really into the generational healing, but I wanted to do those 13 mystical wisdom trainings with all of my being. It felt like a life or death situation. It felt like the soul of my daughter, who was like maybe 2 at this time, was telling me, Mommy, you need to do this. I had no idea how it was going to happen because I had gone bankrupt like 6 months before this. I hadn't even gotten a credit card. Like there was just nothing. So I was like, okay, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. Of course, it all lined up and worked out. And those 13 mystical wisdomship training, apprenticeship training, which you can take too, was just phenomenal. I learned to really embrace who I was on a spiritual level and embrace with my spirit. And I am a nurturer, okay? Part of my soul's journey is to nurture and to teach and to share, people connecting to their spirit and guiding them to their own spirit and what their own journeys are like, and to help heal and release, I'll get to that in a moment. So when it came time to the generational healing training, I still didn't want to. And do you want to know why I didn't want to? I really didn't want to because I was afraid. I kind of judged myself. I didn't see myself as this. Like I was like judging myself on being that person who did this healing, which seems so weird right now. And it was also only done in person. And I was like, I really didn't want to be tied down to one spot. Who knew 3 years later I'd only be able to do it online, and now I really want to do it in person. um, and during the training, it was just phenomenal. I it was challenging and beautiful, and I had a moment with the ancestors that just totally lit me up. It was so many signs. I guess I'll tell you the story. So I kind of was still resisting, and everybody else who was in the training was not from the town, from Montreal, where it was being held, and I was. And so I was going home to my family every day, and my teacher, she took me aside and said, she's like, you know what? It's time for you to, you can't go home right away. You gotta like just let this sink in for a few hours. So the night before, I had been having wild dreams, like ancestral dreams from the ancestors all week during this time. It was so potent. And I got a message from Lady Gaga. Her movie A Star is Born had just come out, and I knew there was messages. So when she told me this, I said, okay, I'm going to go to that movie. And there were 4 clear messages. I just followed the direction. I just listened to my intuition, listened to the guidance, and it took me to the library. And the library had this section. I'd seen it for the first time. I'd been in the library quite a few times. I'd seen this section for the first time, and when you went in, you had to take off your jacket and put everything into a locker. It was a very sacred experience. And then I was like, oh, okay. It felt like such a sacred place to go in, and I needed to walk into walk in and find this particular spot. So I followed the guidance, and I came to a section, and I was like, what is this section? And it was a section of books and names of ancestors. And I just started crying and beautying, and like just like with so much love. And I sat there and I meditated with the books, and I just wept in gratitude. And I said, thank you. I'm listening. I'm here. I will do this work. And that is how I started. So there was a lot of training, a lot of healing. And after that, of course, like do the training and there's case studies and all these things. And I still was timid to kind of share this with everyone. I felt like I'm the yoga person. Like I'm the yoga therapist. I work with stress. I don't work with ancestors. And every single time I opened up to it, it was like people would come from, pop out of nowhere because the ancestors were helping this. And then as I got into this work, I started to feel the importance of it even deeper. And then of course COVID hit, and it was like there's no turning back, there's no stopping. We have to release our past more now than ever. Okay, we need to release these wounds that we are holding on to, these imprints, these traumas that we've had, because we are ready to have a freshness to be here, to release this. So Mother Earth can no longer hold all of the trauma and drama and like patterns that we've had here. So I am in my zone of genius when I am doing these healings, when I'm working with like the ancestors, even soul guidance sessions and stuff too. Like all of this is a part of me, and I stepped into it not understanding. I resisted it for so long. And so that is why the short story is I leaned in and opened, and I had the people there to support me and guide me. I trusted, and I said, okay, yes, I believe you. I've had to go through a lot of my own healing to get here, but has it ever been worth it? I have never been more grateful to share healing with anybody before. So that is how I got here. The actual condensed version, because there's always so much in everybody's lives, but another day. So yeah, if you haven't experienced generational healing with me, then you definitely have to.